welcome back. It is the Vegas Take Sharp and Shapiro. Jamison Welsh joining us in the studio as well from Drive Time Sports. Glad you could join us. Boy, do we have a jam-packed show for you tomorrow. Besides Mike Babcock from TMZ Sports, the Mueller Report is coming out. Oh, boy, there's going to be a lot to get to and a lot to talk about. You know, talking a little bit off the air, and I'm not going to share everything, but I will say this. You know, I was very critical of Dave Rice going back to basketball. I was very critical of him as a head coach. And sometimes when you criticize people in this town, they think it's personal. I don't understand why that is. I never did. It's almost like you can't criticize certain people in this town. You can't touch them. They're untouchable. And yes, I was very, very difficult. I'm not even going to say I critiqued him. I think I was honest. It was my opinion. I don't think he's a good head coach. And I believe when he does get a head coaching job somewhere else, and eventually he probably will, unless he's in the perfect situation, I don't think he's going to succeed. I think he's a good assistant coach. And then, you know, his brother doesn't like me very much. His brother is the head coach at Bishop Gorman. I was just saying, no, I'd love to get Grant Rice on the show. And I'd love to ask him, what have I ever said about your brother, on or off the air, that you would consider personal, that you think was over the line? That's what I would ask him, and I would gladly promote Bishop Gorman basketball because obviously he does a fantastic job with that program. They're a fantastic program. Tons of players are getting scholarships, some even making it to the NBA, and he's been a big part of that, and I would give him all the credit in the world for that. But I don't understand, Jamison, why some people take it so personal when you critique basketball coaches. When you do a sports show or a political show or any show for that matter, it is your job to be opinionated. I'm not here to answer to anyone. You know, I'm here to share my opinions. Me and JD, almost every day when Marvin Menzies was coaching, we blasted him. We put him on full blast. But there's a reason why we did that. There's probably, 30 reasons why we did that. One of them being he didn't get the job done here. I don't think he wasn't the right guy for the job here.
Right.
I think for Marvin Menzies, he wasn't the right guy for the job. I think with Dave Rice, he's not fit to be a head coach. I'm not talking about high school. I'm talking about a good D1 college program. Marvin Menzies could be successful somewhere else. He was successful in the WAC.
He just took a job at Grand Canyon.
Yeah, which is a really good school.
That's where Menzies is going?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
It happened like 2 hours ago.
2 days, yeah.
Yeah, like 2
So where's Dan Marley going?
No, Dan Marley's not going.
Assistant coach.
Marvin,
under Dan Marley at Grand Canyon.
Marvin Menzies took the assistant coaching job at Grand Canyon?
It's actually smart because I'll put it this way, Grand Canyon's better than some of the schools in the Mountain West.
So the idea with that must be
and Dan Marley really well.
Dan Marley's probably going to be, in a few years, he's probably going to be coaching somewhere else. And
he's probably get the Suns job next year.
Gosh, that's possible.
I'm just saying, they passed him up a couple times. I'm just saying, like, eventually they have to go back to.
Okay, but I'll tell you what.
I hope the Suns don't draft.
And by the way, I didn't know that. This just happened today?
Yeah, like 3 hours ago.
Right, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, good for him. I hope he's successful
and
there.
Iowa, the state of Iowa Senate just passed legalized sports betting.
Well,
which
that's
is
big.
huge
That's
for
big
me.
you. That
so
is.
now I can go home, visit my family, and I can bet.
You can go home and bet. You could bet on Marvin Menzies and
That's
Grand
exactly
Canyon.
what I'm going to bet on.
Well, my thoughts on that are look, I think Marvin Menzies could be successful in another conference, and he was. This was the wrong job for him, and he didn't recruit well here, and he just I just don't think he gets the. He's not one of those guys that's going to get the maximum of the talent they have. Same thing with Dave Rice.
What hurt him the most, despite the fact that he wasn't winning, was he was getting blown out and fans weren't showing up, and then he was making excuses for his losses.
He made a lot of excuses. It's one thing I'll say about Dave Rice. He rarely made excuses. He faced the music, and I give him credit for that. But again, there are people in this town that still hold an angst towards me because of that, because I was so tough on Dave Rice. And I have a big problem with that. I really do. I think it's our job to be opinionated. Now, TJ Otzelberger, we talked about that a lot. While I didn't agree with the hire, and I think for that money there were better people out there, bigger names that would have gotten people in the seats, perhaps people with better recruiting resumes and just better resumes in general. So I've been very consistent on that. I didn't agree with the hire. With that being said, I want him to succeed. Let's see what he can do. I've also said on the record that I think he's off to a very nice start. I think he has a pretty good assistant coaching, assistant coaches in place. I thought Kevin Kruger was a great addition. I also think it's certainly a positive that there are a few guys that have decided to stay. Mm-hmm. I think it's great that he's reached out to guys like Larry Johnson. Seen pictures of that. So I think he's going about it the right way. We all need to give him a chance.
Yeah, he was at an event for the Final Four on a Saturday at Red Rock with a couple of people I know, and like everyone like had good things to say about him. Like he's like a personable guy. And at the end of the day, he wanted the program all good for the program. He wanted wants the program to win. So it's a good situation. My only thing is if he does well early, he's out of here. Like that's the only bad thing. He's not a guy that's gonna be a lifer at UNLV. He's a guy that's looking to use this as a stepping stone up. Coming from South Dakota State, going to UNLV, the next step is getting a top Power 5 job. Like
not out of the realm of possibility that if that does happen in a few years, Kevin Kruger could be up for the job.
And honestly, it could happen as soon as 2 because once you get to the tournament and do good in the tournament, you're a young guy. When you're young, you're under 50. Yeah. They come calling, and it's tough to pass up.
Let me ask you this: what is doing good in year one? What does he have to do in year one?
I just think being more competitive within the top schools in the conference, the Fresno States, Utah States, San Diego State, and also Nevada. Obviously Nevada, we don't know what they're going to be next year because everyone's gone. But just whoever the top 4 schools are in the conference, if you're not one of them, you have to be competitive with them. It can't just be automatic blowouts. Fresno came here on that Saturday afternoon and blew their doors off. That just can't happen, especially with a first-year coach that didn't have the excuses that, it's his first year. There's no excuses of that.
Right.
So you have to be more competitive, but also be in the contention of making one of these invitationals. Be in contention of doing that in your first year. But also, I think that with the talent they have coming back, I think they will be. They have some guys coming back.
Houston's not coming back, though.
No, he's not coming back, but the guards are coming back. And Tomboy, I don't think he's going to come back, but there's a chance he does. If he does come back, they have some action.
Fair enough. I think year one, a success to me is competing for a Mountain West Conference title. Success to me is at minimum making the NIT tournament. Let's keep in mind, this isn't year one when Marvin Menzies took over. Mm-hmm. He has time to recruit. He's making $1.1 million a year, which means, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe he is the highest paid coach in the Mountain West Conference. Mm-hmm. He better not use the term rebuilding. And he hasn't. He said all the right things so far. But if things don't go his way, see, that's going to be the true test. Mm-hmm. We're talking a couple months into the season. If things don't go his way, let's see how he handles that.
Do we know what their schedule is next year?
Don't have it yet. Don't have it yet.
Do we have any idea who out of conference?
No idea.
No, okay.
We know they're in the Maui Invitational.
Yeah, but that's not next year.
That's 2020.
That's 2020.
That's not next year. Yeah. So very interesting to see what happens when he faces adversity. We saw what happened with Marvin Menzies when he faced adversity.
Do you think that David Jenkins is on his way here?
50-50. There's some other schools that are after him. There's
a lot of schools.
Yeah, like,
UNLV is one of like 16.
Like Gonzaga, I saw.
Some serious
power,
some serious contenders.
Look, the bottom line is Amari Hardy can't do it by himself. This guy's going to have to recruit. His coaching staff is going to have to recruit.
He already signed Jonah Antonio.
Right. Correct. They just announced that.
Is he going to get the kid, the 4-star from here in town, Strother?
So Strother is probably going to Gonzaga. I mean, I've heard it's close, but if I had to put money on it, I would say Gonzaga. Yeah. And plus his sister went to Gonzaga as well. When
you're the highest paid coach in the Mountain West Conference, I don't care what league you're coming from, you need to win, and you need to win right away.
The salary to me is not. I don't put the same importance on it. My thing is this: you have to build a culture because you can have all the salary you want. You got to build something. You have to create and start a culture. We haven't had a culture here since Lon Kruger left. You have to build an identity and create a culture. I don't even mind a bad year one. I have to see you building towards something. Like, okay, let's say they lose a bunch of close games. Let's say hypothetically they're in a bunch of games, but at the end, execution's off, whatever. Right. But you can tell, hey, this is the kind of team they are. They're building towards something. We can all live with that. What we can't live with is this mixed match team that goes out every night with something totally different. One game they score 50
a bunch of threes.
Yeah, one game they score 50, next game they score 80. Their defense is sloppy one game, next game is on. We can't have that. You got to have an identity and stick with it.
Yeah, and you forgot to mention adding in everybody in the media should be getting a TJ Otzelberger signed mini basketball. You forgot to add that. That's very important.
And they need to sell Otzelbergers at Thomas and Mack.
Yeah.
We were having this discussion earlier. What do you think should be on an Otzelberger?
That's a legitimate question.
We got to ask him what, have you had him on the show yet?
I have not, no.
You needed to make that happen.
I have requested him several times.
I believe we've made it a fairly conscious effort so far to get him on the show.
I can get Tom Izzo. I could get Steve Lavin. I could get almost any coach or former coach I want to, but I guess it's very difficult.
He at the Knights game last night, he rang he spun the wheel.
I like that.
You got to ask him.
With passion, with enthusiasm. I was very happy to see the way he did it.
I like that.
You would have to ask him what his favorite toppings are on a burger.
Right.
Yeah, that's always first and foremost. But yeah, I would, when you get him on, that would be one of the questions I would definitely ask him.
Yeah, we're definitely going to ask him that question.
Eventually we'll get him on. It might be a year and a half.
Hopefully another station who gets him on isn't listening to our show and doesn't steal our question.
That's a good question. I hope that doesn't. They do steal my questions and they steal my guests. Jameson Welsh is a perfect example of that. But no, Jameson's been doing radio with me for a long time. I'm very appreciative that he does it.
I would say that a successful season for UNLV this year is, even if it's 16 and 18 or 18 and 16 is scoring a lot of points, not getting blown out, and increasing attendance by 50% on every home game.
Well,
that's success to me. Do you agree, Jameson?
Attendance is so tricky because there's a lot that goes into it. But here's the key. Like I get where you're coming from. My thing is we have to see progress. We have to see a culture change. Until that happens, and Brian mentioned a good point, making excuses after games or after things don't go your way, people don't want to hear that. People want to say, hey, you know what? We're going to get this corrected. We're going to get this figured out. We're going to move on.
Well, if you're a fan and you're traveling from Summerlin down to the game at Thomas and Mack, and you watch on a Tuesday night, and you watch these guys get blown out by 20 points, why would you do that?
But if you got work the next morning at 7
exactly. I don't care.
But if they lose by 5 or lose by 6 and it's a competitive, high-scoring game, it's still worth your time.
I don't care how many great players he recruits, assuming that he does. They're not going to get the attendance until they have a good strength of schedule and they beat some ranked teams. And
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, I can't see more than 9,000 people in the arena.
Yeah, but there was only 1,500 this year, so it would be about 2,200, 2,300 next year.
A little more than that. A little more.
I'll do you one better, Brian. This past year, Reno didn't play a whole lot of great teams. They got the seeding. They got a lot of love they got off the previous year. Their schedule wasn't that great.
They were also top 25 in the country, and almost every single one of their players returned.
Right, but I'm saying their schedule wasn't that great at all. Their out of conference was.
Didn't say it was, but they're
I'm just saying
different circumstances.
No, I'm just saying just in general. If you win, people don't really care against who it's against. If you win, people will.
I agree, but the point I'm trying to make is when you're in the situation UNLV is in, and you're not winning, and you're on the brink of not being relevant, you better play some good teams.
Nah, but I disagree. If you win, people really don't matter when you're winning. When you're playing a loaded schedule and you're getting your teeth kicked in, people are like, why are they losing by 30 versus this team?
You don't think it's important for them to have a good strength of schedule?
I'm more of a balanced guy. I don't think you got to load up. I'm more concerned about, hey,
who has Marvin Menzies played in besides Arizona? Who else have they played?
He played against Kansas, right?
He played Kansas.
Played Duke.
He did.
So I mean,
Duke was not him.
But I'm saying he was there. He was there when that happened.
But their strength of schedule has been
overall, it's been awful.
terrible.
Yeah, it's been awful. I'm saying, but here's the thing: if he would have ended up winning 23 games a year, we wouldn't have talked about that.
I still would have talked about it. Here's why: I think it's important for a relevant school. And again, I keep saying this, UNLV's on the brink of not being relevant, but I think it's important and it helps attendance, regardless of whether you're winning or losing, to play a very good competitive out-of-conference strength of schedule. I think that's important.
I'll put it this way. If you go 16-1 and you play a very mediocre schedule, there's more attention on you than you going 10-6 and playing a tougher schedule.
What I will say is UNLV is not going to be going 16-1.
No, I'm just saying. Yeah. I'm just saying if you have because Georgetown did it 2 years ago and they hired Patrick Ewing. They had a really big.
I understand, but I think Jameson, what I'm trying to say is I'm talking about UNLV, the state that they're in right now, and I think it could only help them, not hurt, if they play a really good out of conference strength of schedule. That's all I'm saying. I get where you're coming from, and you're right. Nevada didn't have to have that, but at the same time, they were coming off of a Sweet 16 year. They had just about all their players coming back. The Martin twins, and of course, really Caroline. Yeah. But I think it's important that TJ Otzelberger in year one has a solid out-of-conference strength. I think that's
if
important.
It's available, because a lot of times it's not available.
If it's available, and usually it is. Usually, I'm not saying you're going to play top 10 teams in the country, but what I am saying is you can play top 50 teams in the country.
That I agree. Yeah, that I agree with. Yeah,
and
top
that's
70 teams.
And I don't think Marvin Menzies was consistent with that. He just wasn't. I know they played Cincinnati last year, but other than that, who the hell else did they play? I mean, they played BYU.
They played in the event in Hawaii. That was
they played Bucknell.
They got killed by Bucknell.
Yeah, that was a big game.
Yeah. Just you know, Bucknell, not exactly a program that I would say, wow, we got to play those guys. But I mean, but again, I think it's important. And going back to what I said earlier, we all need to support him. We all need to get behind him. Let's see what he can do. He deserves a chance. And I hope he succeeds, just like I hope Marvin Menzies succeeds, okay? I hope he goes somewhere, and I hope he wins. I really do. I've said the same thing about Dave Rice. He's had success at UW as an assistant coach, and I know he's been looking for a head coaching job. I think I would rather have Marvin Menzies as my head coach than Dave Rice. That's just me. But with that being said, I wish them luck. I have no ill will towards any of them. That's why I started this segment, and that's what I said. Now, me and Marvin Menzies, we didn't see eye to eye on a few issues, but But with that being said, I'm glad that he got the job. I was unaware that he got the job, the assistant coaching job at Grand Canyon. What would that be like working for Dan Marley? I don't know. I would imagine he's pretty demanding.
Well, I mean, it's a good spot because the program on the rise. It's on the West Coast. They're trying to make a name for themselves. If anyone was ever watching them on TV, the fans go crazy. It's probably the best atmosphere in college basketball.
That's really tough on the family, though, isn't it? Because how does this work? Do the kids stay in school here? How would that work?
Everyone's situation is different, but school's ending in a month. So, I mean, you
so
have
they
time
finish
to
the
adjust.
school year and then they move?
Yeah.
Gosh, that's brutal, isn't it? That's a tough business because you're always going from job to job to job.
But you know what you're getting yourself into, though. Like, that's part of the, you get used to it after
He's
a while.
also getting paid a lot.
I think what was his son, 17 or 18?
I have no idea.
And his daughter was similarly aged?
But also, this also
know.
cuts out the buyout, too.
Exactly. It saves
cuts
you
out
money.
Yeah, some of the buyout. Yeah, whenever you take a job, it cuts out of the buyout.
Why would he do that then?
He wants to coach.
Yeah.
He has money, so I mean, if you want to coach, you
So
get it.
so the buyout was supposed to be like $800,000, something like that.
Right.
As an assistant coach, he can't be making a Grand Canyon more than two or three, right?
This cuts into the buyout. This cuts into. I don't know if it cuts it all off, but it cuts into it. Whatever he's
So
making.
you're saying if he's making 2 or 3, they take that out of the 800,000.
Correct.
Okay, then that makes sense because he's still working. He's still making that salary, that money, which I'm not sure he earned, but that's fine. They gave him the contract, so he's got to get paid. They gave him. They gave him. Did they pay out Dave Rice by now? You think? Wasn't that 7 figures? I heard it was 7 figures. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's insane. Must be nice.
I'm not certain that Vegas was the place for a guy like Marvin Menzies.
Well, you don't have to say you're not certain. It just wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, the facts speak for themselves. It was the wrong spot. I hope TJ Otzelberger gets it done here. I really do. And we'll have to wait and see what happens. I want to switch topics quickly to the Vegas Golden Knights last night. Another dominating performance, 5-0 against the San Jose Sharks. What do you guys make of that performance last night? And it just seems like they got into Kane's head a little bit, too, as well, because everybody's talking about Ryan Reeves, who the guy literally plays. I like Ryan Reeves, don't get me wrong. He's an enforcer, but he only plays like 5 or 6 minutes a game. And yet everybody on the San Jose Sharks wants to talk about Ryan Reeves. Why?
Well, because he's made himself part of the series. It's like anything else. It's like a role player in the NBA. For instance, like Patrick Beverley. He's made himself a part of the series. That's just all it is. Whenever you have a role player, a guy that doesn't play a whole lot, and he does stuff to make him part of the series, he's going to be a topic of discussion. But, the Golden Knights have really, really put their what's the best way? They've put their will on the series. They came home and really took care of business. And now there's a chance that this series is over in 5. And I don't think people thought that coming into it.
I didn't, but some of my friends did, and I thought they were crazy. I'm wrong. They were right. I thought this was going to be a long, drawn-out series. And we'll see what happens in Game 5. The series isn't over yet. I mean, I think San Jose Sharks have packed it in. That's just my opinion, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. A player that the San Jose Sharks should be talking about is not Ryan Reeves. They should be talking about a guy by the name of Marc-Andre Fleury. They cannot score goals against this guy. He was spectacular again last night. He is looking like the Marc Fleury of the playoffs of last year. I mean, he's incredible. I mean, there were a lot of opportunities for the Sharks. In fact, even Turk made the this point that he felt like the Knights were outplayed the first 2 periods. That the Sharks, they outshot them. Fleury is just, he's on another level right now. You can make the argument he's the hottest goaltender right now in the NHL. You have a chance to beat anybody when you're playing the way Marc-Andre Fleury is playing. You guys agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, when you have a hot goaltender, you can go I'm a Kings fan, so I've seen that twice. When you have a hot goaltender, you can go literally as far as holding thing up at the end of June. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, Marc-Andre Fleury's been unstoppable.
He's been amazing. I think that this Knights team has star power that it didn't have last year. I think it can match up.
This team was
mano a mano with the Capitals, and last year it could not. I see a Knights Capitals rematch in the Stanley Cup this year.
We'll have to wait and see about that. I'm not sure, but I will say this: before the Mark Stone acquisition, they were a different team. They were still a good team. They were still a playoff team. Max Pacioretty is playing probably the best hockey of his career. I think there's several other guys on the team. Once Stone got there, he just brings a new level to this team. He's physical. He when he's out there, it seems like he's 12 years old, but just the excitement he has. He's always out there, pushing his teammates on, smiling, making people better. That second line right now, the way they're playing, you can make the argument is the best line in hockey. It's that first line that I'm a little bit concerned of.
The reinforcements, the depth is what's really separating them.
But you need more production from that first line. You'd like to see that first line score a few more goals, but that second line has just been unbelievable. They've been incredible. Defensively, they've been good. The forecheck has been good. I don't know how this happens, guys. The Tampa Bay Lightning were the favorite to win the Stanley Cup this year. throughout the year. They had an unbelievable regular season. If I'm not mistaken, I believe 63-15, if I'm not mistaken.
They were 62-16.
62, I was close, yeah. Unbelievable. That is a historic season by any standard. How the hell do they lose 4-0? They can't even win one playoff game. For the life of me, Columbus completely outplayed them and embarrassed them. I do not understand that. You will not see that in the NBA. When will you ever see, Jameson, an NBA favorite to win the championship lose in the first round 4-0? And I understand.
Not 4-0.
No.
We've seen 4-2.
Fine, but 4-0?
Yeah, we saw the We Believe Warriors in 07 do that to the Mavs, but that's like the closest I can think of. But it wasn't 4-0, though. It was 4-2.
And I know that hockey's a fickle game, right? But with that being said, you would have thought Tampa Bay, when they were down 2-0 on the road, they would have cleaned their act up a little bit, maybe get a game or two.
You would think, but man, like momentum's a hell of a thing. Once teams get momentum, it's really tough to slow that down. Like, it's really, really difficult.
True. I mean, hockey's a different animal. I get that. That's where I think hockey's a little similar to baseball in that usually the team that is favored the entire year, usually, not all the time, but usually does not win the World Series. Whereas in the NBA, I think out of all the sports, and again, I'm not saying it happens every year, but usually the favorite at the beginning of the year usually wins the NBA Finals.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
It's been like that for the last.
Why is that, though? Why? Why is that?
Because one player, if you have one dominant player, it changes everything. If you have two on the same team, you're almost guaranteed.
Yeah, if you have the best three-point shooter of all time, which Curry at this point clearly is, and a player like Kevin Durant. But in baseball, football, hockey, or even college basketball, it's the team that plays the best at the end of the year that I've noticed that really ends up winning.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many different variables in the other sports. I mean, baseball has 9 guys plus a bullpen you got to worry about. Football has 11 plus special teams and all that stuff. Basketball's just 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just 5.
That's true. I mean, basketball, a different animal. But look.
And I think that in the NBA, the 6 fouls is a big difference, whereas in college you only have 5.
Yeah, I don't want to make it like the Knights have already won the series. I mean, obviously they're a huge favorite now to win up 3-1.
They're minus 1,000.
Yeah, but with that being said, if you lose, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but if you lose Game 5, then all of a sudden the pressure is back on the Knights. You have to win Game 6 at home.
Yeah.
You don't want to go on the road for Game 7. So this is a very, very, very important game for a number of reasons.
Right.
First of all, you want to close out the series. You also want your team to get healthy and have a few days off.
Correct.
So and for Flower, you want to give him a little bit of rest as well. This is a game that the Knights have to win. A lot of people, you can't step back and be relaxed here. You're
Right.
up 3-1, but you got to get this W.
Yeah, you're correct.
Yeah.
Well, the Sharks are minus 115 at home tomorrow.
I think it's a game that I would stay away from. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We'll see what the Sharks are made of. We'll see if they're just going to pack it in, and we'll just have to wait and see. Jameson, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much. I always appreciate when you come in studio with us. Always a great time. Tomorrow's going to be a crazy day. You don't want to be here tomorrow, Jameson. It's going to be a crazy
What
day.
you got going tomorrow, man?
We got the Mueller report that is going to be.
Oh,
made
yeah, I
public.
want no parts of that.
Yeah,
I'll be watching Clippers, Warriors, and
I don't blame you.
Sixers
I don't blame
Nets.
you. Jameson, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. We'll catch you same time, same place tomorrow, folks. You've been listening to the Vegas State. Ken Thompson coming up next.